My beloved child, pause for just a moment. Set aside the noise of the day, the unanswered questions, and the thoughts that have been racing through your mind. There may be a reason you found this message today. Whether it simply caught your attention or stirred something deeper within you, allow yourself to listen with an open heart. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to have every answer right now. Sometimes the quiet moments become the ones that help us see ourselves more clearly. Imagine, for a moment, that someone who cares for you deeply has been searching for the courage to tell you something important. Not because they have all the answers, and not because every uncertainty has disappeared, but because something inside them has been changing. Growth often begins in silence, hidden beneath ordinary days where nothing seems different on the surface. Yet beneath that stillness, hearts can be learning, healing, and slowly becoming ready to speak the truths they once kept buried. Subscribe and comment Amen 777 if you're ready to welcome a new season of hope and blessings. Perhaps your own heart has sensed this kind of shift. You may have noticed that certain memories have returned without warning, or that moments of reflection have carried more meaning than they once did. Sometimes life has a gentle way of inviting us to pay closer attention, not through dramatic signs, but through the subtle realization that we are no longer the same people we were yesterday. Healing rarely announces itself loudly. More often, it arrives one small step at a time. There is something deeply comforting about realizing that not every season of waiting is empty. Waiting can feel frustrating, especially when you long for clarity or understanding. Yet many of life's most meaningful transformations happen during those very moments when nothing appears to be moving. Roots grow long before branches reach toward the sky. In much the same way, emotional strength is often built in places where no one else can see it. This is where today's reflection begins to unfold. It invites you to consider that someone connected to your journey may have experienced a moment that caused them to pause and see life differently. Perhaps an ordinary day became unexpectedly meaningful. Perhaps a quiet realization interrupted old patterns of thinking. Whatever the moment may have been, it wasn't necessarily dramatic. Sometimes the smallest experiences leave the deepest impressions because they reach places within us that have been waiting for healing. Before we continue, there is something worth remembering. Every meaningful relationship begins with two people growing individually before they are truly able to grow together. It is easy to focus on whether another person is changing, but it is equally important to notice the ways your own heart has been learning patience, resilience, and compassion. Every challenge you have faced has quietly shaped the person you are becoming today. You may not always recognize your own progress because you have lived through every difficult step. Growth often feels ordinary while it is happening. Only later do we realize how far we have come. The fears that once controlled you may not hold the same power anymore. The disappointments that once defined your outlook may now be teaching you wisdom instead of pain. These changes matter, even if they seem invisible. Subscribe and type 333 if you're praying for true love. Now imagine someone else reaching a similar crossroads. They may have spent a long time convincing themselves that silence was easier than honesty. They may have believed that avoiding difficult emotions would somehow protect them from disappointment. Yet over time, many people discover that unspoken feelings do not disappear. They simply wait patiently until the heart becomes brave enough to face them. Something may have happened today that gently challenged those old habits. It could have been a quiet conversation, a familiar place, an unexpected memory, or even a peaceful moment alone. Life has a remarkable way of placing simple reminders before us exactly when we need them. Those reminders rarely solve everything instantly, but they often become the beginning of a different path. And this is where everything begins to shift. When someone starts seeing life through a new perspective, they also begin seeing relationships differently. Instead of asking how to protect themselves from being hurt, they slowly begin asking how to become more honest, more patient, and more emotionally present. That kind of transformation cannot be rushed. It grows through reflection, humility, and a willingness to let go of old fears. Your own journey may be inviting you into that same kind of growth. Rather than searching desperately for immediate answers, perhaps this season is encouraging you to strengthen your trust in the process itself. Some chapters are designed to prepare you rather than satisfy your curiosity. While that may not always feel comforting, it often becomes meaningful in hindsight. Subscribe and type 222 if you're believing in divine timing. Stay with this message, because there is another layer that has not yet been revealed. What may have happened today was not simply an emotional moment. It may have been a turning point in how someone understands themselves, their past, and the kind of future they hope to build. That kind of realization doesn't always lead to instant action, but it often plants a seed that continues growing long after the moment has passed. As you continue listening, resist the temptation to rush toward conclusions. Every meaningful journey unfolds at its own pace. Sometimes the greatest gift is not receiving immediate certainty but learning to remain hopeful without forcing outcomes. There is quiet strength in choosing peace over panic, trust over fear, and growth over impatience. This is not the end of the story. In many ways, it is only the beginning. There is another truth waiting beneath the surface, one that may explain why silence has lasted longer than expected and why today's reflection carries such quiet urgency. That deeper understanding is about to unfold. Type 1111 if you're welcoming hope into your heart. The deeper truth begins here, and it asks you to look beyond what can be seen on the surface. It is easy to assume that silence always means distance or that unanswered questions always point toward endings. Yet life is often far more complex than our first impressions. There are seasons when hearts grow quietly, away from the attention of others, because some lessons can only be learned in stillness. If someone has seemed distant, perhaps their silence has not been empty at all. Perhaps it has been filled with moments of reflection they themselves did not fully understand. Imagine someone reaching the end of an ordinary day, believing it would be no different from the countless days before it. The routines remained the same, the responsibilities continued, and life moved forward as expected. Yet somewhere in the middle of those familiar moments, something shifted inside them. It may have been a memory that returned without warning, a realization brought on by a quiet conversation, or simply the unexpected awareness that time continues moving whether we are ready or not. Sometimes the most meaningful changes begin with a single thought that refuses to disappear. Perhaps today became one of those moments. Not because every fear suddenly vanished, but because they began to recognize that carrying old emotional burdens had become heavier than facing the truth. Many people spend years believing that avoiding vulnerability keeps them safe. They build invisible walls around their hearts, hoping those walls will protect them from disappointment. Yet those same walls often prevent love, understanding, and genuine connection from entering as well. There comes a point when protecting yourself begins to feel lonelier than opening your heart. You may understand that feeling more than you realize. There may have been seasons in your own life when you convinced yourself that expecting less would hurt less. Perhaps you learned to hide your hopes beneath practical thinking or buried your emotions beneath daily responsibilities. But hearts have a remarkable way of reminding us that they were created not merely to survive, but to grow through honesty, compassion, and meaningful connection. There is something important you still need to understand. Growth is rarely a straight path. It often looks like taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. There are moments of confidence followed by moments of doubt. There are days when courage feels effortless and days when fear whispers that nothing has really changed. This is a natural part of becoming emotionally mature. Progress is measured not by perfection but by the willingness to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. And this is where another quiet realization begins to emerge. Type Amen to get blessings 888. Perhaps what happened today was not one dramatic event, but the accumulation of countless small moments finally making sense. Every lesson they once ignored began connecting together. Every mistake became an opportunity to understand themselves with greater honesty. Every disappointment became a teacher instead of an enemy. Sometimes life waits patiently until we are ready to see what has been there all along. You may have noticed something similar within your own journey. Challenges that once felt meaningless may now reveal hidden purpose. People who entered your life may have taught lessons you could not appreciate until much later. Even seasons of waiting may have quietly strengthened your patience in ways you never expected. Looking back often reveals a wisdom that was invisible while you were living through it. Stay with this message, because what comes next reaches even deeper. Imagine realizing that the person you were yesterday is no longer the person you are becoming today. That realization can feel both exciting and unsettling. Growth asks us to release familiar patterns, even when those patterns no longer serve us. It invites us to exchange certainty for trust, fear for courage, and control for peace. While those changes are rarely comfortable, they often become the beginning of our greatest transformations. Perhaps someone connected to your journey has begun facing those very questions. They may have recognized that waiting for the perfect moment only delayed the life they truly wanted to build. They may have discovered that healing does not require having every answer before taking the next step. Instead, healing often begins the moment we choose honesty over avoidance and hope over resignation. This is where patience becomes so valuable. It is tempting to demand immediate clarity whenever life feels uncertain. Yet some answers arrive gradually because they are shaping not only our circumstances but also our character. If everything unfolded instantly, we might never become the people capable of appreciating the blessings we hope to receive. As you reflect on these words, consider how much your own heart has already endured. You have faced disappointments, unexpected detours, and moments when the future seemed impossible to understand. Yet here you are, continuing to move forward. That alone is evidence of resilience. Even when you felt weak, something within you refused to give up. Even when hope seemed distant, you continued searching for light. That quiet perseverance matters more than you know. Before we continue, allow yourself to release one expectation that may have been weighing heavily on your heart, the expectation that everything must happen according to your own timeline. Life often unfolds in ways we never anticipate. Some delays become protection. Some detours become preparation. Some endings quietly make room for healthier beginnings that would never have existed otherwise. There is still another truth waiting beneath the surface, one that explains why today's reflection carries such a sense of urgency. It is not urgency driven by fear or pressure, but by awareness. Awareness changes everything. Once someone truly sees the direction their heart is calling them toward, remaining the same becomes increasingly difficult. The story is still unfolding, and the most meaningful revelation has yet to come. Type Amen to get blessings 444. There comes a moment in many journeys when the questions begin to change. Instead of asking why everything happened the way it did, the heart quietly begins asking what it can learn from those experiences. That shift may seem small at first, but it has the power to transform everything that follows. Perhaps this is where today's reflection is gently leading you. Not toward perfect answers, but toward a deeper understanding of yourself, your hopes, and the kind of love that grows from honesty rather than expectation. Imagine someone sitting with their own thoughts after an ordinary day, realizing that they had been carrying the same emotional weight for far too long. It was not a dramatic discovery. Nothing extraordinary happened around them. Yet something within them felt different. They recognized that holding on to old disappointments was preventing them from fully appreciating the opportunities still in front of them. Sometimes the most meaningful turning points are almost invisible from the outside, yet they quietly reshape the direction of a person's life. Perhaps your own heart has experienced moments like this. You may have noticed that certain memories no longer affect you the way they once did. The pain has not been erased, but it no longer defines every decision you make. That is one of the quiet signs of healing. It is not forgetting the past. It is learning that the past does not have to control the future. But another truth is beginning to surface. Growth often asks us to release expectations we have held for a long time. We imagine that peace will come only after every question is answered, or that happiness will arrive only when every hope is fulfilled exactly as planned. Yet life often teaches something gentler. Peace begins to grow the moment we stop measuring our worth by outcomes we cannot control. It grows when we choose to become faithful to our values, even while the future remains uncertain. Perhaps someone connected to your journey has been learning this lesson as well. They may have discovered that avoiding difficult emotions did not make them disappear. Instead, those emotions patiently waited until they were finally ready to face them with honesty. There is quiet courage in admitting that old habits no longer serve you. There is even greater courage in choosing a different path, one thoughtful decision at a time. Stay with this message, because the next realization reaches even deeper. Type 555 if you're open to positive change and love. Imagine looking at your own life and recognizing that every season, even the difficult ones, has added something valuable to your character. The disappointments taught resilience. The waiting developed patience. The unexpected changes revealed strengths you never knew you possessed. Looking back, what once felt like wasted time may begin to appear as preparation for a wiser and more grounded future. This perspective changes the way we see both ourselves and others. Instead of expecting perfection, we begin appreciating sincere effort. Instead of focusing only on mistakes, we notice growth. Instead of rushing toward conclusions, we become willing to listen with greater compassion. These are the quiet qualities that strengthen meaningful relationships over time. There is something you still need to understand. Meaningful change rarely announces itself with certainty. It often begins with small choices repeated consistently. Choosing to forgive a little more each day. Choosing to speak honestly instead of hiding behind fear. Choosing gratitude even when every circumstance has not yet improved. These decisions may appear ordinary, yet together they create extraordinary transformation. As you continue listening, perhaps you are being invited to make one of those quiet choices today. Maybe it is choosing patience instead of frustration. Maybe it is letting go of a disappointment you have carried for longer than necessary. Maybe it is simply believing that your story is still unfolding and that this chapter does not define the ending. Before we continue, remember that every meaningful relationship is strengthened when both people continue growing as individuals. Lasting connection is not built on perfect circumstances but on mutual respect, emotional maturity, kindness, and the willingness to keep learning. Those qualities develop over time, often through experiences that initially feel challenging. This is where everything begins to shift once again. Perhaps today's reflection is not asking you to search for certainty but to become more present. Instead of worrying about every possibility that tomorrow may hold, notice the opportunities you have today, to encourage someone, to extend grace, to care for your own well-being, and to take one more step toward becoming the person you hope to be. Those simple acts have a quiet power that reaches farther than you may realize. The story is not complete yet. Another layer is about to unfold, one that explores how trust grows after seasons of uncertainty and why genuine peace often arrives not when every mystery is solved, but when the heart learns that it can move forward with courage despite the unknown. That understanding will bring everything you have heard so far into a clearer and more hopeful perspective. Subscribe and type Amen to get blessings 999. If you have stayed with this message until now, perhaps you have already sensed that the greatest changes are rarely the ones the world applauds. They often happen in the quiet places of the heart, where no audience is watching and no words are spoken. It is there that old fears begin to loosen their grip, not all at once, but little by little, until they no longer carry the same weight they once did. Real transformation is often so gentle that it can be missed unless we choose to slow down and notice it. There is another layer to this reflection that deserves your attention. Imagine someone looking back over the path they have traveled and realizing that many of the things they once regretted have become some of their greatest teachers. The disappointments they wished they could erase have given them compassion. The seasons of loneliness have taught them the value of genuine connection. The unanswered questions have strengthened their patience in ways they never imagined possible. Sometimes the experiences we would never choose become the ones that quietly reshape us into wiser, kinder people. Perhaps something like this unfolded today. It may have been a simple realization that arrived without fanfare. Maybe they noticed how differently they responded to a situation that would have once overwhelmed them. Maybe they recognized that anger no longer came as quickly, or that fear no longer dictated every decision. These are the kinds of victories that often go unnoticed by others, yet they reveal a heart that is growing stronger with each passing day. Your own journey may hold similar moments. There may be victories that no one else has celebrated because they happened entirely within you. Choosing peace instead of resentment. Offering forgiveness instead of holding on to bitterness. Deciding to keep believing in goodness even after disappointment. These choices may seem small, but they have the power to change the direction of an entire life. Before we continue, pause for a moment and acknowledge how much courage it takes simply to remain hopeful in a world that often encourages people to become cynical. Hope is not naive. It is a quiet decision to believe that healing is still possible, that people can grow, and that tomorrow does not have to repeat yesterday. That kind of hope becomes a steady light, especially during seasons when the path ahead is not yet clear. But there is another truth beginning to emerge. Sometimes people believe they must become completely perfect before they are ready to move forward. They wait until every fear has disappeared, every question has been answered, and every weakness has been overcome. Yet life rarely works that way. Growth is not about reaching perfection. It is about becoming willing to keep learning, even while imperfections remain. The heart becomes stronger not because it never struggles, but because it continues choosing love, honesty, and humility despite those struggles. Type Divine ID. You choose faith over fear. Perhaps today became the moment when someone finally understood that waiting to become flawless was preventing them from becoming authentic. Authenticity requires courage because it invites us to be seen as we truly are, not as we imagine others expect us to be. It allows relationships to be built on honesty rather than appearance, on trust rather than performance. There is something you may need to hear as well. If you have been carrying the weight of wondering whether you are enough, gently remind yourself that your worth has never depended on having a perfect story. Every chapter of your life has shaped the person you are becoming. The joyful moments and the painful ones alike have contributed to your wisdom. Rather than wishing those chapters away, perhaps you can begin to see them as part of a journey that is still unfolding. Stay with this message because another layer is about to reveal itself. Imagine realizing that many of the answers you have been searching for cannot be forced into existence. They arrive naturally when your heart becomes ready to receive them. This does not mean giving up on your hopes. It means releasing the pressure to control every outcome. There is a profound peace that comes from doing what you can today while trusting that tomorrow will unfold one step at a time. This kind of patience is not passive. It is active faith in the value of steady growth. It chooses kindness when frustration would be easier. It chooses understanding when assumptions seem tempting. It chooses gratitude for the progress already made instead of focusing only on what has not yet happened. These quiet choices shape the future more than dramatic moments ever could. Perhaps someone connected to your journey has begun recognizing this very lesson. Instead of trying to outrun uncertainty, they may be learning to walk through it with greater confidence. Instead of allowing fear to write the next chapter, they may be discovering the strength to write it with honesty, compassion, and hope. That change may not be visible to everyone yet, but meaningful growth often begins long before it can be seen from the outside. As you continue listening, allow yourself to release the idea that every delay must be a sign that something is wrong. Some seasons exist not to hold you back, but to help you become the kind of person who can carry future blessings with wisdom and gratitude. Looking back, you may one day realize that what felt like waiting was actually preparation all along. This reflection is moving towards something deeper, but it is not finished yet. There is still one final piece that brings everything together, a quiet realization about trust, emotional maturity, and the kind of peace that remains even when every question has not yet been answered. That final message may not tell you exactly what tomorrow holds, but it may help you meet tomorrow with a steadier heart and a renewed sense of hope. As this message begins to draw to a close, take one more quiet moment to reflect on everything that has been placed before your heart. Perhaps you notice that this was never really about trying to predict the future. It has always been about understanding the quiet transformation that can happen within a person when they choose growth over fear, honesty over avoidance, and hope over despair. Those are the moments that truly change a life, even if no one else sees them happening. If you imagine someone wanting to say, "I need to tell you what happened today, it's very urgent," perhaps the urgency was never about dramatic news at all. Perhaps it was about the realization that life is too precious to spend hiding behind old wounds. Perhaps it was about recognizing that every day offers another opportunity to become more compassionate, more patient, and more authentic than the day before. Sometimes the most important message is not one that changes our circumstances overnight, but one that changes the way we choose to walk through them. You may have been waiting for a sign that everything will work out exactly as you hope. While no one can promise how every story will unfold, you can choose the kind of person you become while the story is still being written. That choice belongs to you every single day. You can choose kindness when disappointment tempts you toward bitterness. You can choose understanding when confusion invites assumptions. You can choose peace even when every answer has not yet arrived. There is a quiet strength in refusing to let uncertainty steal your joy. It does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist. It means believing that your life is bigger than any single moment of disappointment. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, can shape your character if you allow it to teach you rather than define you. Perhaps this reflection has reminded you that meaningful relationships are not built only on strong emotions. They are sustained by trust, respect, forgiveness, honest communication, and the willingness to keep growing together. Before two hearts can truly meet in a healthy way, each heart often has its own lessons to learn. That process cannot be rushed, and it cannot be forced. Like a tree growing steadily through changing seasons, lasting strength develops one day at a time. Perhaps this reflection has reminded you that meaningful relationships are not built only on strong emotions. They are sustained by trust, respect, forgiveness, honest communication, and the willingness to keep growing together. Before two hearts can truly meet in a healthy way, each heart often has its own lessons to learn. That process cannot be rushed, and it cannot be forced. Like a tree growing steadily through changing seasons, lasting strength develops one day at a time. As you move forward from this moment, carry this thought with you. Your value has never depended on another person's ability to recognize it. Your worth is not measured by how quickly someone responds, how perfectly life unfolds, or how closely reality matches your expectations. Your worth is reflected in the kindness you offer, the integrity you maintain, and the courage you show when life asks you to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. And perhaps that is the deepest message hidden within today's reflection. Sometimes what feels like waiting is actually becoming. Sometimes what feels like silence is creating space for wisdom. Sometimes what feels like a closed door is simply an invitation to prepare for a different path than the one you first imagined. Looking back, many people discover that the seasons they once questioned became the seasons that shaped them most. Before this message ends, let your heart rest instead of racing ahead. You do not have to solve every mystery today. You do not have to carry every burden by yourself. Give yourself permission to breathe, to grow at your own pace, and to trust that meaningful change often begins quietly. The smallest step toward peace is still a step worth taking. If this message resonated with you, let it serve as a gentle reminder to approach today with an open heart. Reach out to those who matter. Speak with honesty. Listen with compassion. Extend forgiveness where it is possible. Protect your peace without closing your heart. The love you hope to experience in the future is strengthened by the choices you make in the present. And as this chapter comes to an end, remember that every sunrise brings another opportunity to begin again. No matter what yesterday held, today invites you to choose hope over fear, wisdom over impulse, and gratitude over discouragement. Your journey is still unfolding, and every step you take with patience and sincerity adds another meaningful page to your story. Thank you for sharing these moments of reflection. May you continue forward with courage when life feels uncertain, with humility when life goes well, and with compassion for both yourself and those around you. The road ahead may still hold questions, but it also holds possibilities you cannot yet see. Perhaps the next chapter will reveal not only new answers, but a new version of you. One that looks back on this season with quiet gratitude, realizing that the greatest transformation was never simply about finding someone else. It was about discovering a deeper peace, a stronger heart, and the courage to welcome whatever tomorrow brings with hope.